Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the CEP Strategic Advisory Committee of July 25th, 2022. I call this meeting to order. Luke, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, thank you. Vice Mayor Chow.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Here.
And Planning Commission Chair Scharf.
Here.
All committee members are present.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Luke. First, we begin with item 1, approval of the minutes. The subject is to approve the June 6 Community Engagement Plan Strategic Advisory Committee special meeting minutes. The recommended action is to approve the June 6 Community Engagement Plan special meeting minutes. So we'll give everyone a moment and see if there are any comments from members of the public regarding the meeting minutes. And I'm not seeing any hands raised from members of the public. Bring it back to the committee. Are there any edits from members of the committee for the June 6 minutes?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I do have a question. So I see that there is a list of feedback from the committee, and does that include all the feedback or just somewhat of the feedback? And how is it determining which part of the feedback is included or not?
Do we have an answer from staff on that?
I could take a try at that. I don't know if Syra may have something to add as well. I think the goal with the minutes is to summarize, really get to the core of the meeting. And there is a video available that has a full record of everything said. If somebody wants to view the meeting in its entirety and hear everything, that is available and is posted. So, that's the goal with the minutes. So there may not be every comment captured, but we try to get the major topics that were discussed during the meetings. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Syra. I think that's the goal with the minutes.
Thank you, Luke. I was just going to say the same thing.
Thank you. I see Housing Commission Chair Parrish, your hands raised.
Yes. Will they remain up, the videos, not just until they're recorded, or, will they remain up for the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will.
Thank you.
Okay.
I motion to approve the minutes if there's no other question.
Okay, second, but I do still have questions. So because the ones that's listed, I don't have impression we actually mentioned them, like the calendar timeline to be included. Is that for the website? Because we didn't mention like the pop-up booth on the Kid in a Box. There are other ideas mentioned, and the list of outreach mentioned, parents helping parents, Project Sentinel, Chamber of Commerce. Those are these only 3 mentioned, or is that some of them mentioned? And then did we have consensus on all of them? I'm confused on how is the feedback selected? It's selective, it's not.
Well, I think if you're writing a summary, you're going to have to be selective at some point, which is why I think the goal is to have the recorded meeting in their entirety, where anybody who's interested in seeing the meeting and everything that's said is able to do that. And we're keeping all those available on the website. Otherwise, I think in a 2-hour meeting with a lot of conversation, you would pretty much have to have verbatim minutes, which would be very lengthy. So
yeah,
I think
but then if you're selective, then I would like to know your selection criteria.
I don't know that there's specific criteria for the minutes. I think it's just a goal to try to summarize what were the main topics of discussion at the given meeting.
So it's a personal preference. What comments you don't like, you don't include. Comments that staff may like will be included.
Well, I think that's characterizing it with a little bit of a slant. I think it's an honest effort to try to summarize the meeting, not to have a personal preference about that.
So I think the meeting should at least reflect that we did mention the kid in the box, which was, I think, an important part of the discussion, and other options for outreach pop-up booth. And for example, we specifically mentioned that for the Anza College, rather instead of students, we should outreach to the Dianza board members and employee unions and public agency employee unions like Cupertino Union, Fremont Union. Those were not mentioned in this minute.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. I think if you have a specific edit that you would like to the meeting minutes, you could offer that. We do have the items regarding parents helping parents. The Danza flea market is mentioned in there. So if you have a sentence that you would like to have added on, that would be appreciated. And you can amend the motion.
Yeah, I would like to amend the list, the item as I stated. I guess the staff can go and check if how it was worded at the meeting. And so I would like to propose amendment to the minutes, I guess. Yeah, our motion to amend the minutes with those additions.
Okay. Planning Commission Chair Scharf, your hand's raised.
Yeah, after listening to Vice Mayor Chow, I tend to agree with her that it seems that it was very selective what was included in the minutes and what was not. And I'm thinking perhaps the minutes should go back and be redone before we approve them, to include, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be a verbatim minutes of the whole meeting, but just to include all the things that Vice Mayor Chow mentioned. I don't know if we can sit here today and go through the video of the meeting to capture all of that. I think that, this is not something we want to do sitting here. So I think we should, push this off until the next meeting and have the meetings redone, have the minutes redone.
Okay, thank you, Planning Commission Chair Scharf. It would actually be my preference that if there are edits to the meeting, that they are prepared prior to our approval of the meeting minutes, so that it's not turning into a lengthy discussion about that. And if a sentence had been prepared regarding items that you wanted to have added, Vice Mayor, I think that would have perhaps sped this section along a little bit. So right now, do we have an agree? So could someone please remind me who made the original motion to approve the minutes?
Tessa.
Tessa.
I did.
Okay. Okay. And
Yes.
okay, so you had a request from your seconder to modify the original motion. Would you like to have those additions made?
Yes, and I after listening to Vice Mayor Chow, I remembered those items, and I too would prefer if they were included. So yes, if we, whatever
Okay.
you choose, Chair chooses.
Okay, thank you. And so the items such as Kid in the Box and speaking to the Danza board and the other items which were suggested by the Vice Mayor, you accept that those would be added. And Vice Mayor, you're the seconder. I'm going to assume you agree to those additions?
Yes, so I don't think I should be required to watch through the meeting to provide edits to the minutes. These are from the top of my head. But so I don't know who should be editing the minutes.
Okay, so one of the things that comes to mind is that you're making a request, and if they're edited and you're not satisfied with the changes, to what when will you be satisfied with the changes? Are there certain specific items that you see that were missing that you want specifically to be added? I could just have Kit in the box and speaking to the DANZA board as
the other employee unions. So I guess this could be brought back with edits proposed by staff, and then we can improve them.
Okay. So let's has been suggested. Chris, if how do I word this in order to bring it back with the edits? We're essentially postponing this item, tabling it.
Yeah, so there's a motion on the table now. So that motion would either have to be voted on or withdrawn. And then if council, excuse me, if the committee wishes to bring this back, then they should just table this item to the next meeting.
Okay, and that gets tabled by motion, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so
I've been withdrawn.
Okay, so the motion's been withdrawn, and do I have a motion to essentially table the item until the next meeting with the edits that were suggested by the Vice Mayor?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Vice Mayor? Okay, we got a second from the Vice Mayor. Luke, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Yes, Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Aye.
And Planning Commission Chair Sharp.
Aye.
Okay, passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So we have no postponements. Next, we move on to oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter within the jurisdiction of the committee and not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. In most cases, state law will prohibit the committee from making any decisions with respect to a matter not on the agenda. And I see some hands raised from members of the public. First, we have Jenny. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Council Member Moore. Yes, hi, I'm still a little tired this morning. Yes, nice to see you all. I'm just going to bring up an item which really nobody really has talked too much about because this has been such a new type of housing element. There are, as everybody is aware, every city in California is going through a housing element as well as the counties. And up here, Cupertino is surrounded by Los Altos, Saratoga, West San Jose, parts of San Jose, Sunnyvale, and Santa Clara, and then Santa Clara County. And these other entities are going through their own housing elements. And I'm very, very concerned that these other cities, of course, are going to be having to come up with large RHNA numbers, as we all are having to. And they're going to be having to rezone or upzone parts of their cities for high density housing. And I'm very concerned that we may have areas that are adjacent to Cupertino boundary, since we're surrounding by so many cities in the county, that those areas may be upzoned or zoned for higher density, et cetera. And we really have not had any input on this. I have been watching the housing elements around. My mother-in-law lives in West San Jose, and I'm aware of some rezoning that's been going on near her. And I'm watching what's going on in Santa Cruz because my mother's in Aptos and they're in the county, and there's a lot of drama going on over there with Capitola, Santa Cruz, only incorporated, Watsonville, et cetera. So I'm just throwing this out there that we probably should keep an eye on or keep an eye out on what is going on with the housing elements in adjacent cities. And I don't want to pick on San Jose, but San Jose is a mighty big force in this. And just keep an eye on what areas are being rezoned. I mean, I'm sitting down here in my neighborhood. We have 3 apartment complexes in West San Jose that have Cupertino addresses. This is Fountains, Shadow Oaks, and I don't know, Archstone, Cupertino. They're all in the bounds of West San Jose, but they have Cupertino addresses. They could all be upzoned high density. And we have that whole border along Homestead with Sunnyvale, and then the county areas. And then we have San Jose running down Bollinger and other areas. So we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
You're muted, Kitty. Oh,
I'm not speaking. Yes, I'm waiting for Lisa. You appear to be unmuted. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, yeah, I didn't hear my name called. I just saw the unmute button come on, so here I am. So I'm grateful for Jenny for mentioning that. It did come up in site selection discussions with Planning Commission and the joint meetings, but it's worth repeating over and over that we have border cities, and I think the largest discussion was how that could affect what San Jose does on De Anza, how that could affect things for Cupertino. But the exact place that Jennifer is talking about across the street is Santa Clara. Now we just got the second cruise ship almost built. So there's not a whole lot of room they have, but they do have some more space. Anyway, so I've mentioned it before. I totally agree. As far as I'm going to, backtrack on the minute approval. I'm glad that you decided what you did. It may seem tedious, but this committee was put together to help. It's the only mechanism that the public can participate in, because there's no stakeholder meeting with residents. This took its place, and with the idea that it would form how to do outreach. So I feel it's really important to list every idea, everything that was agreed upon doing, so that it can be tracked and checked, and is this happening, and how's it going, and blah, blah, blah. So I really do think the whole list of ideas should be on the minutes. And I guess would suggest that if it's possible to do it using, if you have YouTube or the translation from YouTube, maybe that's a faster way to do it if it's accurate, or at least know where to start and what to pick up on for this list. But so I'm thankful that that was decided that way, and I realize it creates more work, but I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time. So we are going to close oral communications. We move on to public hearings. Our old business item 2, subject approval of the previous community engagement plan strategic advisory committee minutes. This was continued from May 16th. Special meeting. The recommended action is to approve the minutes from March 30th, April 7th, and April 25th. And we'll take a moment to see if there are any comments. Do we have any comments from members of the public? Okay, right now, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the committee. Do I have any edits for these meeting minutes? Okay, Vice Mayor Chow.
So I'm not interested in editing these minutes. I just want to put this on the record that none of these minutes include any feedback from the committee members. So I am appreciative of the fact that on the June 6th minutes do include feedback, although it's pretty selective feedback, but it's at least a good start. So yeah, that's it. So I would not support the item, but I would not also ask for edit. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor, did you say that you will not support the item?
Yes, because I think the goal of the committee is to have a community engagement plan, and every item is seek input from the committee, but none of the minutes really capture the committee's feedback. But actually the April 27th meeting did mention the community meeting date for the upcoming meeting. That wasn't captured in the June 7th meeting. So maybe that should be captured when that item comes back. That, yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. This is a question probably for our city attorney. With regards to the action minutes, is there some guideline that we should be following with regards to that? Because I see that what the request is, which is to capture the requests of the committee members. And I don't know how to, by what mechanism can the requests, the asks be brought back to the committee and be discussed again? Or is that something that we can put in for future agenda setting as a separate item? Is that the best way to do that? Because we do want to see what the requests have been as from the committee, but I don't know if, given the nature of action meeting minutes, if that's going to capture it, and you're seeing how the problem that it's raising.
Right. Yeah. So there are a couple of ways that we could potentially address this. I mean, so one, I mean, you're correct. So I mean, if we're just keeping action minutes, that's not necessarily going to capture comments from individual individual committee members. You know, the action minutes would capture, you know, items that actually are voted on. You know, so that, you know, the city's policy, you know, which, you know, has been adopted by council and is still in the process of being implemented, is that, you know, commissions and committees should strive to keep summary minutes, and those should include comments from members of the public. It doesn't specifically address comments from individual committee members, but, you know, those could feasibly be included. But the policy said, you know, also says alternatively, if automatic transcription is made available to supplement official minutes, action minutes may be sufficient. And so, for example, Zoom does have an automatic transcription function, and you know, the clerk's office can generate those transcripts pretty easily. You know, they're rough but legible in my experience, and so that, you know, if you know, that were the committee's wish, I think that information could be made available to the public.
Okay, Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
You know, I'm trying to get some reference points here myself, because I looked at previous minutes, and I too wanted to see what the spirit of the meeting was. And it does include, and I was just reading some a site called eforms.com. It says minutes serve as a formal record of what was discussed and decided at meetings, at council meetings, and also it says governing bodies, blah, blah, blah. But what was discussed and decided? So just kind of the general overview of, you know, we discussed this item, and this is what was decided, like the total outcome. So I can see why Vice Mayor Chow wants to, like, it doesn't show that we discussed certain topics. So I don't want to get tedious. I don't want to get like redundant and give the staff too much work to do. But I do appreciate the fact that when people look back, they can say, okay, the advisory committee did discuss these possibilities or specific items without going into detail. I think that brings the spirit of the minutes.
Okay, thank you. So back to Chris, would you suggest, if so one way we can do this is to have the transcript from YouTube made available. That could be several pages long. because we're talking transcripts of a 2-hour meeting, right? Okay.
Right, yeah.
And that is available actually right now online. You can just click the transcript button and read it. So that is available. And then alternatively, it seems as though if we want to have a kind of a compact listing of the suggestions that we've been making for outreach, which I'm assuming that is the request, that under future agenda setting, we could just put an item and ask for this subject to come back as a separate item. So right now, if members of the public want to read the transcripts, those are actually all available. If they want to go through that, are the videos available as well. But having a nice summary table would be something a little bit different. What do you think of that idea as a separate agenda item?
Yeah, so I think that would be appropriate for the committee to give direction. If they would like summary minutes to be prepared. As I said, the guidelines that council adopted, really provide those two alternatives, either summary minutes or making the transcription available. I don't think they're necessarily mutually exclusive.
Okay, are we able to do that at our committee level, or does that need to have the council direction back and to say we want this committee to have summary minutes?
I don't think that would. I think the way that I read the guidelines, it's really up to committee, working with the advice of staff is the best way to structure the minutes.
Okay. So for this agenda item, could we request that summary meeting minutes for each one of those meetings come back to the committee? Is that something that we could, again, table the item and have them return as summary meeting minutes, or see if there are some of these meetings, because there's 3 meetings, and that's potentially about 20 to 30 pages worth of work that would need to be done, summarizing those meetings. If there are, out of these 3 meetings, if there's one that one of the committee members is more particularly interested in seeing that way, I mean, is that something that's foreseeable?
So the committee the city committee has discretion to approve the minutes or not. So I mean, I think I guess the question you'd want to ask is whether, this is instruction that staff could take going forward, or, as a sort of a research and resource and logistical issue, sort of,
Okay.
Whether it makes sense to do retroactively.
Okay, so it's my preference to approve the meeting minutes because we have the videos available, because we have the transcripts available, and to have potentially a future subject for an agenda, which would be a summation of the requests that we've made, and for outreach, which would include the dance board, employee unions, kid in the box, the things that are going to be added to the June 6th meeting, and have that discussion, and to do it that way rather than having all of that extra work added at this juncture. I see the planning manager, Pew Ghosh, has her hand raised. Pew?
If I may suggest something, Chair, that would be to maybe approve the minutes as is, but attach the transcription to the transcript of the meeting to it, if that pleases the committee. I mean, that way you have both and everything available. The transcript is, of course, in some cases, misspelled, or, there are some weird things that happen with the transcript, but at least it'll have everything that the committee might be looking for. That is just a suggestion. And then with regard to the reaching out to the board or the employee unions and things, I think you'll find that we may be discussing that later at this meeting.
Okay, so thank you for that suggestion. So I would move that we approve the meetings minutes from March 30th, April 7th, and April 25th with the attached transcripts made available. And first, do I have a second? And then I see there's hand raised.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Mayor Chow, your hand's raised.
I'm new to the, I don't think we should ask the staff to do extra work to include those feedback back from these past meetings. So, yeah, I don't think we should even include the transcript. I think all we need is a link to the YouTube video and the instructions on how to generate the transcript. And that probably could be, would be useful for the minutes. Yes, we can say the video record is in this location. Here's how you generate transcript. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vice
I'm
Mayor.
happy with that.
Okay, so I would like to modify the motion that instead of including all the transcripts, that we include directions in order to access the meeting YouTube video and the transcripts. Okay, and is that accepted by my seconder?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not seeing any
Let's have
further
a
hands.
vote. Oh, there's a member of the public though.
We've already closed public
Oh,
comment.
okay.
I'm not going to
Okay.
open it up again. And Luke, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Yes. Vice Mayor Chow,
Yes,
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Housing Commission Chair Parrish,
Aye.
and Planning Commission Chair Sharp.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, so we've completed item 2. We move on to new business. Subject is a report from staff and EMC Planning Group regarding the July 30th community meeting focusing on students and older adults, the draft housing element survey, the remaining community engagement plan events, including receiving input from the advisory committee on the focus of the third community meeting and update and changes to the engaged Cupertino.org website and balancing act. Great. And recommended actions: receive the report and provide input to staff on plans for additional community engagement and for engagement consistent with compliance with state affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements. Luke, do we have a report?
Yes, I have a brief report. Thank you, Chair Moore. Yeah, the advisory committee last met on June 6th. We'd had a scheduled meeting that was canceled on June 20th. So we're hoping to get to the items that would have been discussed at that meeting, as well as providing an update on everything else related to community engagement and outreach. One additional item is, as Commissioner Scharf and Commissioner Parrish know, we had joint meetings on the sites inventories related to the housing element, not outreach, on June 28th and July 5th, resulting in a recommendation to the City Council on the housing sites inventory. Again, those meetings wrapped up on July 5th. Last week, we had our second community meeting, which we'll be hearing about from Andy Flower at EMC, Kylie Clark, and Lee Robinson. This meeting was last Wednesday evening, was a virtual meeting that focused on the housing needs of students and seniors. So that will be something we'll be going through today, as well as the expansion of what is now on the website, including the Balancing Act, which has changed from our last advisory committee meeting. I know Andy will be discussing that. And one of the topics we had planned to get your input from on June 20th, which we're hoping to get to today, is the third community meeting and what the panel could consist of, topics that could be discussed. So that would be something we're looking for feedback in particular from the committee members. And I think there are still some other questions out there that that we were going to address, as well as we'll be presenting. I do want to mention a survey that we can go through briefly in the presentation that Andy has, that hopefully will meet a lot of the needs that have come up in recent meetings regarding surveys and things like a meeting in the box, that hopefully this will be able to fill that request. So we are ready to go with that survey also really as soon as possible, as early as tomorrow. So in any event, to not take any longer than that, I will turn the presentation over to Andy, who will be, again, including Kylie and Lee. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Luke. Chair Moore, if I may, I'll share my presentation.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Today is our meeting number 5 with the Strategic Advisory Committee. And today's presentation is intended to be maybe a little more conversational. So you'll hear from our team, as Luke mentioned. Both Lee and Kylie will be chiming in to talk about the past, the recent past community meeting, and we'll also be asking for feedback from the committee, and if it pleases the chair, we'd like to do that during the presentation.
Okay, let's do that.
So today's purpose, just to check in on outreach progress, collaborate on project schedule, introduce next steps for site outreach. And our agenda, as Luke just mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the recent community meeting that was virtual last Wednesday, housing meeting, the third community meeting preparation, timeline check-in, and the website and balancing act. So this was the agenda used for the community meeting last Wednesday. We had a welcome, an initial breakout room that was for folks to introduce themselves to each other. We had a fantastic panel, and then we had a longer breakout room than we've had in the past community meeting. And I think that went well. And I'll invite Kylie and Lee to speak of it briefly. Please join.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, so I'll just fill you all in on it a bit. Thank you to those of you who attended as well. We really appreciate that. And you'll be getting a full report of this later on. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of the basics, but there were 65 attendees in total. And just to give you an idea of who they were, we took some poll questions at the beginning, and we asked if they'd ever experienced housing related challenges, and 44% said yes, and the other percent said no. We asked if they'd ever joined this kind of meeting on public policy, and 31% said it was their first public meeting, which is super exciting. 48% said that they'd attended some, and 20% said that they regularly contribute at these public meetings. And last, we asked what groups they would consider themselves to be a part of. 19% said young adult, 19% said student, and 47% said older adult, and that left 15% saying none of the above. So we had a lot of representation of those groups that were also represented on the panel. And we had 5 panelists. So we had Parisha, she was a De Anza student and a West Valley Community Services client. We had Edwin Castillo, and he's a De Anza student and then also an intern for a program that they have called CYLC. We had Kamala, and she's a West Valley Community Services client, as well as an older adult who is 80 years old and still working as a teacher to try to make ends meet, as well as lives in affordable housing. And then Leslie Butler, who's a West Valley Community Services client and is an older adult with a disability. And last, we had Erica Flores, and she's a De Anza staff who works on basic needs for students. And the panelists all shared really valuable insights and spoke very powerfully. So I'm excited to compile some of their words for you all to look at later. And like Andy said, we had 2 breakout rooms, and those were both really successful. And we also put more emphasis on the breakout rooms during this meeting because we'd received that feedback from previous ones. And I think that that'll work really well for the housing element, is demonstrating that there was this really big space for conversations within the community and everything. And last, I'll just give you all a little bit of the data and feedback that we have so far. So we took a poll at the beginning asking on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong of a sense do you think you have of students and older adults' experiences related to housing? So 1 being the least and 10 being the most. And we had, within the 1 to 3 rating, we had about 30% put their answers there. And then the rest were between 5 to 9. And then in the closing poll, we had 0% put anything between 1 to 3. So we increased their understanding a lot. And we had 44% say 7, and then 33% say 8 or 9. So that was really exciting to see that it did give them the information that they were hoping to get. And last, in the exit survey, 70% of attendees said that they learned new information or learned about housing from a new perspective. And we also got a really good amount of qualitative feedback from that survey. So that'll be included in the report. And the recording will be up soon, and you'll have the report by September.
Thank you, Kylie.
Yes.
I'd like to invite Lee also to share a little bit about your experience as a moderator.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks, folks. It's really good to see you all. Good to be here. Yeah, I was very moved. I've been moved each time and really inspired by being in the breakout rooms as a moderator with some of these conversations. And I feel like as we're thinking about equity, the thing that keeps coming up for me is compassion, right? And hearing each other's voices and hearing a little bit about each other's experiences. And that continues to be the through line in my breakout group. Some of the three things that really came up that I've been really thinking about this weekend and this morning was this idea of if we don't hear from each other, then we don't know, right? We don't know what someone else is experiencing, so we may not be able to act upon it. So this idea of the value of hearing from each other, the value of this actual space, the value of this breakout room, that was a huge piece of the conversation for us. Is just like, how can folks have more opportunities like this, right? To really sit and listen to each other. Something else that came up was the vast differences in our experiences. The panel was fantastic. Kylie did a great job of bringing a number of different experiences and lived experiences to that panel discussion. So folks really had an opportunity to engage in ways that they may have heard something new. They may have also heard something that they could resonate with. And all of that also came up in my breakout room. And also this concern for homeless communities, right? And this idea of, unfortunately, we don't always get to know each other and the experience of others enough. We kind of rely on what we read, what we see on television, all these different things that, feed into our, become our idea of what these experiences are and how valuable it is to know, to actually sit in a room and have a conversation about what those experiences are. So this conversation was, again, fantastic. I think that the through line, again, continues to be more of these conversations because they do lead to compassion, being able to relate, and empathy. And that's just probably the biggest takeaway I had from that experience. And my group was relatively a large group in the breakout room, and they were all engaged in talking to each other. So I was really proud of that and just grateful to be a part of those conversations. So it's really powerful. This was a great discussion. We need to do more of them. Folks are really asking for more, and it's just a fantastic tool, I think. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lee.
Mhm.
If I may add, that was a point that came up in our breakout room group as well. The idea that can we include in our policies metrics and milestones for more of these kinds of meetings so that the decision makers, it was a commissioner actually in our breakout room who suggested how powerfully it had impacted their experience and that they would like to see this happen on a regular basis. So we'll be considering that as we move forward with policy. And that is a big piece of our next step. So we'll be bringing forward to the Housing Commission the report that Kylie mentioned for this community meeting number 2, along with the report from the first meeting. We'll also bring forward, if the committee today would like to see us move forward with the housing survey, we can bring forward the results for that, and we'll hear more about that in just a minute. Also a review of prior housing element programs, because it is a requirement with our update that we remark on progress made so far with the programs and policies and goals that were included with cycle number 5 as we move on to cycle number 6. We'll also have the report from Root Policy and a tool for policy suggestions so that the housing commissioners can think about what they're hearing from the public with all of these different inputs, and also from experts here with the report by Root Policy. And so this it's called a PBOT tool, and it enables you to sort of explore some different ways to bring forward some policy language related to ideas that you have. So you sort of use your ideas as inputs, and it helps you formulate that into policy suggestions. So we'd like to empower the Housing Commission with our next steps in discussing deeply the policies that we might be able to bring forward. We're excited about that next step. So moving on to talk about the housing survey. So we took some information, some very well-researched suggestions from Chair Moore and Planning Commission Chair Scharf, and we've integrated it into an online survey. We would also make this available as a paper copy, and this would be something that committee members or council members, commissioners can bring throughout the community as you might like to talk with different members of the public about the housing element, sort of that kit idea that we discussed before. So this is the list of questions. I didn't want to make everybody a little motion sick by scrolling through the entire survey. I apologize for the small font that you're looking at here, but Luke's got the PDF and we can certainly send it out for the deeper review.
Yeah, we could, if I could interrupt for 1 second
Please.
too, I just wanted to clarify that these questions also, they came from other cities that have already done prior surveys, some in Southern California, cities like Indio, also the city of Santa Clara. So a lot of these are, I think it's a fairly basic survey where you're getting background about the people filling it out and their housing preferences. So we've tried to keep it very objective in there. And again, hopefully this fills a need that I think has come up in earlier advisory committee meetings and quickly get on the website. So let me turn it back to Andy with that.
Thank you, Luke. This is the last page. These are the last few questions that are part of that survey of 32 questions. We anticipate it'll take people about, maybe 12 minutes to fill the entire survey out. And so we want to put this question forward to the committee today. Do we launch this immediately? Maybe set a deadline for the end of August so that we could incorporate these results with our anticipated Housing Commission discussion. And I see committee members' hands raised, so I'll let the chair invite discussion.
Thank you so much for putting the survey together. Chris, I have a quick question. I do see a member of the public with their hand raised. I'm going to guess that this would be a time where I can go to members of the public and get their questions or comments on these 3 questions at first and then bring it back to the committee. Does that sound acceptable?
That's a question for me. Yes, of course, that is acceptable. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so we're going to go to members of the public right now and get their questions and comments. So this is with regards to housing survey number 2, which you just saw a brief overview. So the questions are, do we launch this immediately, set a deadline at the end of August, and incorporate the results with policy discussion? And I have a hand raised from Jenny. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and yes, you all put on a nice housing meeting last week. And in terms of the survey, I will tell you right now, I have been watching a number of housing elements across the state, just because this has been going on for 4 years now. And this is tied into other things that you probably don't want to hear about, which is the housing bills, et cetera, which occupy a great deal of many people's time. But what I want to make sure is, if we're going to do a survey like this, that we have a mechanism to make sure that the residents of Cupertino, renters or homeowners or people living with relatives, remember, you have a lot of people that because of COVID are still staying with family members because of having to stay home during COVID. A lot of people moved in with relatives. They may be moving out again. You've got kids in college, back from college, etc. I want to make sure, and I will repeat this, I want to make sure that the people living in Cupertino currently, as I said, I'm making no distinction about that. Renters, non-renters, people living with grandma, grandpa, people having their children live in other households because, we were locked down for 2 years from COVID. I want to make sure that the people in Cupertino have a verified way of responding to this survey. I understand that there are a lot of other people outside the city who want to make comments about things inside of Cupertino. That is wonderful. That's great. I appreciate their comments and input. And believe me, having watched a lot of different housing elements, we have a lot of people from Southern California participating via Zoom in housing elements in Chico. And we have a lot of people in Chico participating in Zoom elements in San Diego or Carlsbad or et cetera, et cetera. So, but remember, this is Cupertino's housing element, and you need to listen to people who have things going on in Cupertino, residents, renters, and whatever capacity. So I want to make sure that there is a way to verify that this survey be for the residents, and we're not getting 95% of the people coming in from outside of the city. Maybe we need to have two surveys. One survey that's for any general comments. We can have people coming in from LA who don't live in Cupertino. And then we have another one just for residents. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. I'm not seeing any further hands raised from members of the public. I'll wait a moment in case there's anyone else who would like to participate in this question list. I'm not seeing any hands raised. And I was wondering, Luke or Andy, if you could please put the questions back up. I think that will help. And we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the committee. And let's see whose hand was up first. Okay, we have Andy, your hand's raised, actually.
Yes, just briefly. I just wanted to comment about the public comment, but before any decision is made by committee members today. And we've heard pretty clearly from HCD that it's important to take into consideration not only folks who live in Cupertino, but those who would like to live in Cupertino. And I believe a lot of the questions, a number of the questions help differentiate the responses, whether somebody is giving their opinion as a resident, renter, or owner, or otherwise, or if they are wanting to live in Cupertino. So we do try to help make that distinction with the questions that are brought forward. And we don't want to preclude those who have not been able to establish a lease in Cupertino, but would like to be a future resident. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Next, we have Planning Commission Chair Scharf.
Hi, thank you, Chair Moore. Yeah, Andy said some of the stuff I wanted to say. First, I want to thank Luke and Andy. Kitty, Chairman Moore, and I prepare these questions. I believe most of them I couldn't go through the whole thing in a much longer survey, which would have taken an hour, and I appreciate them, EMC, cutting this down to something more manageable. And I understand where Jenny's coming from regarding who responds, but as Luke said, you know, one purpose of this survey is to reach out to those that would like to live in Cupertino and why they don't, as well as what I said, if you don't want to live in Cupertino, why is that? Because, you know, we have people that could afford to live here, but that choose to live somewhere else. And, you know, why do we have this demographic imbalance, you know, of people that could live here if they wanted to? That might be something that we'd like to gain more insight on. And Chair Moore, we never discussed, we went right to the survey, but we never had any public comment on the public meeting for De Anza students and others. I mean, is that something you're going to get back to, or is this the proper time to discuss that?
Okay, thank you.
Could you answer that? Because if it's, I'm not done if we're not going to go back and talk about the public meeting.
Okay, I'll actually defer to Andy on that. How would you like to have this organized?
I think it may be helpful when we get to the point of talking about our upcoming third meeting. Maybe that would be a good place to collaborate and consider comments from this.
Okay, I
second
mean,
meeting.
but these are comments on the last public meeting, not on the upcoming one. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't have public comment or comment from the committee members on the last one.
Okay, so we'll stick with talking about the housing survey right now, and then when we get to the discussion about the meetings coming up, we can have a little look back at what we've had already, and we'll take care
Wonderful.
of that there. Okay, great. Okay, next we have Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Thank you. I just wanted to, because I couldn't read it, and I realize you guys have read the questions, but if we are going to provide input or decide if we should launch it immediately or whatnot, could we at least get a few or a summary of the questions, kind of the highlights that you're capturing? Otherwise, I can't make a suggestion. I couldn't read the font. It was too small for me. Could someone read it quickly? Just take 1 minute to read the highlights.
Oh, could it be emailed to us?
That too.
I could forward an email if that would help. So if that would make it easier to read.
Yeah, I mean, this is an agenda item. We should have had this a link to this in the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, so I think if this could be included in the written communications, that would help. With respect to the time component, because you need to keep the survey open for a few weeks, and that's the request that it stay open until the end of August. So you were hoping for probably about 5 weeks, it looks like, and then there's a important request with regarding outreach to make sure that the residents here have access to it. And I was also thinking perhaps you could use the business licensing if there are emails associated with the business license, because that was that list of 2,400 that perhaps that could be another form of outreach with this in order to kind of email blast it more widely. Okay, so if the thing that's a little concerning is that because we didn't get a hold of this survey prior to the meeting, if there are issues with any particular question, because I don't want us to essentially get into a situation where we're micromanaging the questions in your survey. Right. But we do want to see them, because in the past there have been some leading questions that we've seen in surveys that have caused some issues for whatever committee or commission had them, and so we want to make sure, which understandably, that if things look somewhat biased, that they have been addressed. So I am not quite sure how we can take care of that. And so I do understand the request to have the questions kind of read aloud. So I see that it's been scrolled through. If you could go back to the original question, going back to question 1 and then go through. So, and
is Mr. Connolly going to email him? I haven't seen him yet.
I will get that out to you shortly. I just had one that I see as this is up on the screen. Question 24 in this was meant to be deleted, and I see it's still in here. So as we go through that, it relates to, it's an impact fee question that I don't think is accurate. So I just wanted to see that was still in here. I had thought that was edited. I will forward this to the advisory committee now.
Okay.
Oh, so for the one that you're deleting, is it going to be deleted or is it going to be corrected?
It could be either. The way it is phrased now, it is inaccurate. My view was to just simply delete it. With the goal of trying to keep the survey about a 10-minute survey. It's just one question.
Okay. I'll look for the email.
Okay. Chair Moore, can I comment?
Yes, please.
So, I mean, the questions being scrolled through, I see every one is one that Chair Moore and I did come up with. So I believe there may have been a couple of them added. So my thought is to start this immediately or sooner, because we don't have a lot of time. And I would hate to see the committee sit here and try to debate every single question on the survey. I don't think, I think we have to trust our staff and EMC on this. Thank you.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
if I could weigh in quickly, I apologize for interrupting, but I think that really was our goal today, to try to get the survey out. We've tried to make it, like a 10-minute survey that has very objective questions that have been used by other cities as part of the housing element process already. So I certainly understand the committee wanting to have input, but I feel if we do that, we're going to probably spend a couple meetings designing a survey that's already been written and ready to get on the website now and start getting feedback through August.
If I may kind of tack on to that, I did want to add that the questions are mainly drawn from the questions that we observed with the cities of Indio, Santa Clara, and I believe there's one more suggested city. And like Luke said, the one that is being shared right now is still sort of in draft form. We do want to finalize this and get it out as soon as possible. I think for the committee today, the question really is, do we start the survey? Because the further we delay it, the further our housing element is going to be delayed. So I did want to put that out there.
Okay, thank you, Pugh. And I do agree with Planning Commission Chair Scharf that we need to start this immediately. And I'm kind of hoping that if members of the committee take issue with some of the questions, that they take their issue, take it offline and pose it so that we're not dragging out this process. Okay, and I see there's a hand raised from Andy, and then Vice Mayor Chow, and then Pugh, your hand. No, okay. So Andy, okay. Now it's just Vice Mayor Chow. Vice Mayor.
Okay. So actually, survey is one of the items mentioned on the June 6th meeting, and that should be included in the minutes. And I think it would be helpful if this item is split up rather than lumped together. For example, in future meetings, community meeting feedback and future community meeting could be one item, and then survey or other outreach tools would be a different item. That would be less confusing, and it would be really appreciated if documents can be provided. For example, feedback from the community meetings, and those documents if it could be provided in the agenda packet, that would be helpful. And the survey, I have no way to comment now because I have not seen the survey, and it's probably good, but we did have experience in 2019 when the city manager then created a survey, went out, but almost immediately retracted because of comments from community. I don't remember exactly why, but for some people it looks fine. For some other people, the way it's worded, therefore it's important to look at the wording. But then also I recognize that we want this to go out as soon as possible, right? So I don't know how to comment on this, but I do want to comment on the community meeting. And I looked at the website, so the survey is not there. I still don't see a timeline, and which we have been requesting a timeline on the website. And then I have requested from the very beginning, we should have a performance of our current housing element on the website and in the presentation of each community meeting. And when I looked at past recording from 2014, we do include that in presentation because it's important to provide this information for the public. In the current cycle, we identified 5 sites. We have projects approved on all 5 sites, and our current allocation was around 1,000, and we approved 3,500 units of housing.
Vice Mayor?
That should be presented.
Okay, thank you. So we'll get to the community meetings in a little bit. Right now, we need to get an answer for Andy with regards to those 3 questions. And Chris, do we need to make a motion and vote on sending the survey, beginning the survey now, or can we simply do a straw poll? And do we have a majority wanting the survey to go out? What's your suggestion there?
So, I think that you could go either way. I think it would be fine to take a motion and vote. I think this is also something that staff could do operationally with feedback from the committee. But I think either would be acceptable in this case.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And could we please have the 3 questions put back up again? Wait a second.
Wait, which 3 questions are you referring to?
These are the 3 questions regarding having the survey essentially go out.
Oh, okay. Not the actual survey questions. Just
Right.
Okay.
Do we launch this immediately? Yes, they're still working on the draft. Do we set a deadline at the end of August? That's a staff recommendation for the time frame to gather adequate information. And then the last one, if we could have a little bit of flesh this one out a little bit more in the incorporating results with policy discussion question. Could you explain that last item a little bit more, please?
Oh, sure. The idea is just as we move forward with the Housing Commission to discuss policy, we wanted to include the results of this survey for their exactly to inform. Exactly.
Okay, perfect. All right. So do I have a motion that we accept the recommended action from staff, from EMC?
I'll make that motion, Chair Moore.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second? There are 2 hands raised from Vice Mayor and Housing Chair.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. All right. And do we have comments at this point? Any comments?
If I could, did your motion was to go ahead and launch immediately? Is that correct?
Yes, they are still, the staff did say that they are doing some last minute editing. And so I think you can send some comments in, send an email comment in once you've received the hard copy. And then, so the second part was setting the deadline at the end of August. And the third part was to bring those results to the Housing Commission to inform their policy discussion.
Okay, yes, that's fine.
Okay, great. Vice Mayor, your hand's still up. Did you have further comments?
No.
Okay, great. Now we move on.
So for the public who would like to potentially comment, if it's still possible, where can they see the draft?
That's a great question. Well, that should be probably part of the written communications for this meeting and made available online. Is that correct, Luke?
Yes, it could be. Yes.
Okay, and could you please write the word draft across it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. Okay, and Luke, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Yes, Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Aye.
And Planning Commission Chair Sharf.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimously.
Okay, excellent. So Andy, I believe you'll be moving on with more of the report.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so next we'll be discussing the 3rd community meeting in preparation for that. In the past, we have discussed, well, first I'll also mention that we're ready to do a little bit of a check-in to give perspective and context for where we are. So this is the third of the focus groups that we were partnering with WVCS to host. There will also be some faith community outreach, and we're working also, Kylie and her team is working diligently on the individual interviews and videos, and those will be available on our website, and we'll be sure to announce that as soon as they're available. And of course, Kylie has been doing a great job with client recruitment and leadership and involving the clients with feedback. It goes a long way for our AFFH compliance. So we're looking for guidance from SAC, excuse me, that was my abbreviation for the Strategic Advisory Committee today. We talked about the third meeting being focused on employees and those who are house rich or maybe are struggling other than that their housing is secure. And we're wondering if that is still a way forward that you'd like to see us move in that direction. In our experience with other communities, that has been a difficult group of folks to find willing to participate in a panel, to sort of have that public display of their circumstance, because often that is a situation that maybe folks are not obviously struggling. So we would love any feedback about ideas on how to reach out for this population, although Kylie does have some ideas, so we'll see how that progress may be coming along. We also are curious about any additional participants, panelists that you might have, and any ideas generally that you want to see come through with this third community meeting.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And I was wondering if you could do a quick recap, or perhaps Kylie or Luke, a quick recap of the groups that we had for the previous two community meetings. So going back to the first community meeting, that outreach, who was the outreach to, the second one, and so that for this item, we're also going to be having comments about the last meeting and how it went, and getting some feedback there. Thank you.
Kylie, I'll invite you to share some ideas about this, if you would, please.
Yeah, of course. Quick clarification question. Do you mean who was the outreach to attend the meeting, or outreach in terms of what panelists we've had so far?
The panelists for
Okay.
the first and the second meeting, so that we have that all kind of queued up when we're thinking about making some comments about the previous meeting and then moving forward for outreach, so that for individuals who are just now coming into this process and watching this, or either present right now or watching it online, that they know who we've had for previous outreach, so it'll make more sense when the future suggestions are, being decided. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. So for our previous community meeting on May 23rd, it was an AFFH focus, so affirmatively furthering fair housing panel. So we had 4 West Valley Community Services clients, and we had them representing a variety of experiences. So we had people representing disabilities, neurodivergence, homelessness, affordable housing, and discrimination. And for this previous one, so we had students and older adults, and then we really tried to make sure that we had some intersectionality in our panelists. And so we also had disabilities represented, and then some forms of discrimination were represented in that panel as well.
Right. Thank you so much, Kylie. I'm going to first go to members of the public. And so we're looking for both comments on the previous meeting held, I believe it was just last week, and some suggestions for the meeting attendees, for the panelists moving forward. And I see Jenny, you have your hand raised. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. Yes, you all had a good mix of panelists for the previous. I'm glad to see that there were seniors included, and students, and people who had businesses, and people who were talking about their future plans, et cetera, et cetera. The one item I just wanted to make a comment was for the next panel, the part about the church participation. I would be a little cautious on that one. The governor just signed a bill recently, I think it was Buffy Wicks, that allowed churches to build housing on their property without parking. And I don't know how he signed this because everybody's in recess right now. And I don't think this bill had actually I didn't think it had gone all the way through the Assembly and the Senate, but it's law now. And he just signed it like a week ago. And my church, my family church in another city, was put on the housing element of that city without the pastor knowing about it and the people who go to that church. Now, that's why I'm a little gun shy on this, that we need to make sure that if we're going to have houses of faith represented, that they are aware that there are, so I have some very serious feelings about having my personal family church where I was married put on a housing element by another city without anyone contacting and then that church has been there for a long, long time. And yes, it's a valuable piece of property, but I still have it's been very upsetting to me, especially with a brother that died 5 years ago and he was involved in that church, that I think that we need to make sure that people remember that when you're worshiping, there's feelings from both sides. So yes, maybe it is good that some churches are able to put this on their property, but you need to contact and let the parishioners know what the plan is. So I'm just going to throw that out there because I have very raw nerves about what happened to my family church. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Next, we have Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I'm just going to speak about the future meeting. The screen, all I can see is the timer on my screen, so I can't remember exactly. I think it was employees and house rich. Employees is a very general. I can't tell what that means. City employees, anyone employed within city boundaries, anyone employed. I need more information about what that idea is. And then the other is, I heard it said that it will be hard, I believe this is what was said, it could be difficult to find panelists in the house rich category because of being labeling and, excuse me, not labeling, but insinuating that those people are struggling, which that's not really the case in many situations. It's very possible and happens all the time, and I see it all the time in my line of work. There's people that are house rich, and I'm not sure that's the greatest term to use either. I think some people will be offended by that. But what happens, and has happened for years, is certain groups with a certain label or not that have come to our city and others and screamed, oh, we can't afford to live there because all these people are house hoarders and everybody's rich and da-da-da-da-da, which we all know is not true. But people don't have to be struggling just because they're house rich. There's several people I know within the city and other cities who have owned their homes for a long time. Yeah, their homes has grown in value, but if they want to leave, they often can't because the capital gains in selling them their home, if they moved out of the area, it makes it impossible. There's many different reasons that people could be labeled house rich. And I brought this up in the first community meeting, that in the round table, or the breakout table, I said, the insinuation that everyone lives here is filthy rich is just flat out wrong. And So I'm super glad that that's being considered and was picked up and other people have been talking about it. So I would like to encourage that category to be part of the panel, but I think it needs to be looked at in a different way based on some of the things I heard that were sort of hinted at, because it's a big swath of people with different situations. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Susan Moore. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, just a brief comment. So I don't know where segments of our population, like first responders, teachers, and medical personnel, where that would fit into the future meeting. So I just wanted to mention that. And also I agree with Lisa. I think there's a big group of people in our community who, you know, they do have homes, but they're frozen. They're not able to downsize. It's very difficult with all the many issues, taxes, etc. Okay, just that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And we'll wait a moment to see if there are any other members of the public who would like to comment. Okay, not seeing any comments. Any other commenters? We're going to close public comment, bring it back to the committee, and I see a hand raised from the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor Chow, please.
Hi. So I think potential panelists will be Project Sentinel. They do work with homeowners who are house rich, but otherwise need help, and then they provide assistance, for example, finding potential ways to mortgage homes so that they can get extra cash. And then there are other programs they work on, for example, the home sharing program that they are starting a new one that will be able to provide income options for those homeowners. And they do service Cupertino residents, so that will be, I think for these people who work with homeowners in that situation, then the homeowners don't have to speak for themselves. And then as for employees, I think I remember I mentioned on the June 6th also, service is employees who provide service to Cupertino, even city, and many corporations, the people who clean the buildings. And those employees, we should find out what kind of housing they are usually looking for. And perhaps I'm guessing they will have employee union that can speak for them so that they are not speaking of their own situation, then they won't feel uncomfortable to do so. And another thing is teachers, they all have teachers union. Another thing is a special need population, actually developmentally and intellectually disabled. There is legal requirement actually for housing element to reach out to those people. And I have not seen them included. Neurodivergent, that was in one of the meeting. According to people with IDD, they are different. IDD is short for intellectual and developmentally disabled. And also I would like a written list of all the panelists from the first and second meeting, because I keep hearing them orally. I hope there is a document I can take a screenshot of. That would be really helpful. Or send into the written record for the meeting. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I do have a question regarding the term house rich that was brought up by a member of the public. Could that be explained a little bit more fully? And then after that is answered, we move on to the Planning Commission Chair Scharf. So could someone explain what house rich? I'm pretty familiar with house poor, but house rich, I'm not so much.
If I could jump in there, yeah, I believe the slide that Andy showed did use the word house poor. And the intent really was for, people that are not necessarily high, may even be low income, but could have bought their house some time ago. So they've had a house appreciate in value considerably, but they don't necessarily have a lot of disposable income or very little. And I think that was the group that we were trying to capture. That certainly came up, as Kylie said, in the May 23 meeting in several of the breakout room comments. So I don't know if it's just the misuse of a term, but the group we were trying to target is people that are residents, and they could often be older, that have one valuable asset in their home, but really not a lot else. That was the group we were looking at. So, and I think as the Vice Mayor said, and the last speaker, Ms. Moore, the service workers and union representatives, that I believe came up at the June 6th meeting, and that is a group we also have been considering for this third meeting. So that said, if Andy has anything else to add, that was my comment.
Okay, thank you, Luke. I was wondering if I could see the slide, because I actually jotted down employees and house rich on my paper. So
And that may have been, I do think that I had in the presentation that it said house rich. So it may have just been my carrying over a term that I heard during the first community meeting. But I think that the definition is one and the same, whether house poor or house rich. It sounds like it is one and the same.
Okay. I'm used to seeing the house poor where you're struggling to make those payments, but you do have a home. Okay, so the next hand raised was Planning Commission Chair Scharf.
Okay, thank you, Chair Moore. So regarding the last meeting, especially in regards to community colleges, this is great for Cupertino, but I wonder if we or the community college district, as well as CUSD and Fremont Union High School district, if we can reach out to other cities in the districts regarding housing insecurity. I know Foothill De Anza includes Palo Alto, Stanford, Mountain View, Los Altos Hills, portions of Santa Clara, portions of Cupertino, and San Jose and portions of San Jose and Saratoga. So it's really incumbent on all these cities in the community college district to help develop a plan for housing faculty and staff and students. And I think we should, especially with Foothill De Anza, find out what their plans are in terms of using their bond measure money, which is a huge amount of money, to address housing security of their students. I would like to see them, use some of that money to build teacher housing and perhaps build some student housing as well. And also for Foothill De Anza, I think there should be outreach to the state for help as well, especially if we're addressing the housing needs of out-of-district students. And Foothill De Anza attract a lot of students from outside the district, then we really should have some state assistance in funding or subsidizing housing for those students that are experience housing insecurity. And then responding to Jenny's concern on churches, if the city puts a site on their housing element and the property owner has not expressed an interest in building housing on that site, HCD is not likely to accept that as part of their housing element. We were pretty careful in our site selection to not choose sites where there was no interest on behalf of the property owner, even though there was someone who expressed a desire to do that. And I said, no, we can't just rezone sites where there's no interest on behalf of the property owner because they're unlikely to build. So unlike HCD would be unlikely to accept that as part of the housing element. So you would have to have a church ask for permission, actually want to be part of the housing element. A city can't just run out and say, hey, this church, you need to, we're assigning you as a site on our housing element. That just doesn't work that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Going back to one comment from the Vice Mayor regarding the developmentally disabled, is that an area that we really do need to revisit with the next community panel? And would that work out acceptably well for the mix of panelists? Has that been considered?
I can try. Is this a question for Andy, ma'am, if I might just clarify?
Anyone.
Okay, if I might just jump in. I believe with our first couple of panelists that we had, that we've addressed the issue of disabilities to some degree, to the extent that we can find a panelist that has any crossover into that area. I'm sure we could consider that, but I don't think we necessarily, based on at least what I've seen, that we would need to have specifically a panelist to address that one issue. And Andy, if you have anything to add to that.
Well said, Pew.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to the employees, I agree with having the service employees as well. And employees in Cupertino is such a wide range from our many restaurant workers to many tech workers, very well paid, and then in between you've got the Foothill De Anza teachers and CUSD and Fremont Union High School District as our large employers in the city. Okay, so I'm going to move on to, I see Vice Mayor Chow's hand is up, but I haven't gotten to Housing Commission Chair Parrish. Chair Parrish.
Thank you. You might hear my cat in the background that just started asking to go outside. I wanted to support and encourage the item that Vice Mayor Chow brought up, Project Sentinel, as being a possible panelist. I'm interested in having them bring up, because they do the consulting of other cities and whatnot. I'm interested in seeing examples of the number of outreach meetings at other cities that got approved, if there is any more. That time has elapsed, and are there more cities that have gotten their approved, and if so, what number of outreach meetings and what kind of things they considered were factors that made them get approved, like maybe some quick examples. So that was an idea I had of Project Sentinel, or another panelist, or some other city somehow getting that information. Also, my other idea was setting up a mechanism in place to ensure that we have outreach to the different organizations that will help us or can help us, kind of like what Planning Commissioner Sharf said, of all the organizations that can help. I've often wondered, did we reach out to all of them that could help us in the projects, in the building, in the support, in everything? I've not seen anything that shows that all of the organizations possible have been contacted, such as Project Sentinel, such as other builders, who's selecting these organizations that are being contacted? Can we set up this is a suggestion for one of the policies, can we set up a mechanism to put that in place? And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's a great point regarding what the Planning Commission Chair Scharf was saying. Foothill de Anza does have that large bond measure, and earlier on in the meeting, the Vice Mayor was talking about reaching out to their board and trying to understand some direction of what they intend to do with regards to teacher housing and student housing. One concern that we probably should all have is if students are all trying to go to De Anza College and not to the community college where they're living, does the state actually have an equity issue with regards to the educational opportunities being provided in the various college districts? Is that a problem, because that needs to be managed at a higher level to balance out the community colleges, so that we are not seeing this kind of clamoring to come to De Anza College, but we need to make sure that all of the community colleges are strong, so that students aren't feeling compelled to go outside of their own district, that their district has a strong school for them. Okay, so we still have some hands raised. Next, Vice Mayor Chow.
Hello. So I think we have in Cupertino some specific community groups like housing choices and also parent groups, because our school districts are known to provide good service for special needs students. And they have stressed again and again in public meetings, their needs is very different from common disability like physical disability or vision disability. Mentally and developmentally disability is different. So is there any panelist in the past 2 meetings who actually can represent this group?
Okay, I see a hand raised from Kylie. Kylie, would you like to answer?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, like Pew said, in the community meeting 2 meetings ago, we did have someone who represents developmental disabilities, but we haven't, I think, like you said, there is a really broad range, and also it would be hard to smoothly incorporate someone specifically talking about disabilities into our upcoming meeting. And so what I would suggest is I'd be happy to have West Valley assemble a focus group of people with different sorts of disabilities to get together and talk about their needs and the different problems they see within housing and that sort of thing.
And the housing choices, we could invite them as a panelist. Also, they have authored a very long comment letter for housing element. So they do want to be included in this discussion because they do provide housing for this population. So it seems, yeah, if we need panelists, we can invite housing choices. And then another thing, I think we keep talking about, we would like to have more ownership housing, but then it seems the community meeting so far, we have not reached out to the people who would eventually want to own a home, but what kind and what size, what environment they are looking for. Maybe that's something, and also what kind of down payment assistance they would need in order to own housing. So maybe that's a population that's important, because housing element is not only all below market rate housing, a lot of portion is normal level of housing, but how to get to that level is still important for us to address. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see, Pew, you have your hand raised. I do think that the focus group suggestion from Kylie is a interesting one that could work out well. What was your comment, Pugh?
My only comment was kind of tacking on to what Kylie was saying. You know, when we are designing these workshops, we're trying to design them so there's kind of a synergy between the different panelists that are anchoring the workshops, because it just helps to move the conversation along in a more coordinated fashion. In some sense, that this kind of play off of different things, the issues that come up. So it does help with structuring the workshops. And if, you know, West Valley Community Services is willing to have that focus group specifically for different kinds of disabilities, you know, I mean, that certainly would probably be helpful. Though, like I said, we probably will not be able to hit all the disabilities. There's a very vast and wide-ranging range out there. I don't know that we're expected to hit every one of them in our outreach as well. I just wanted to make that point as well, though I'm not suggesting that we don't do it. I'm just saying that we don't necessarily have to.
Okay, thank you, Pio. And I'm just for a time check, it's 12:40, and I'm not really sure how much we have left within the agenda. So could Andy give me some feedback, or Luke, about how we're doing time-wise in order to complete our agenda?
I think we're good. I mean, I can let Andy answer that too. I know we're getting near the end. Since I'm talking, I just wanted to have one clarification too, since Vice Mayor Chow and Commissioner Parrish had brought up Project Sentinel. Kylie, Andy, and I have already met directly with their executive director and staff a little over a month ago. I think they would be a good choice as well to have on a panel, but we had a pretty lengthy, in-depth conversation with them related to issues related to Cupertino, and renter and landlord issues. So I think we've established that contact already and have documented that meeting so far. But I'll give it back to Andy as we are starting to get low on time.
All of this feedback from committee members is extremely valuable for our upcoming third meeting. The final piece of the agenda today is just to quickly go to the website and share with you what we have in store for the upcoming council meeting. So what we're hoping for is a whole lot of public interaction with our sites list. So as time allows, I would like to showcase that and invite folks to jump in and give it a try.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And still have some hands raised from the committee members. Planning Commission Chair Scharf.
No, sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. I don't have anything else. There I go. Okay.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, so I'd like to clarify. So for the kid in a box, we are not pursuing that idea now, but then we are doing the survey, and then the committee and the council members or commissioners or community volunteers are encouraged to outreach to the community to encourage people to fill out the surveys. Is that so? That's the outreach method that we hope to do.
I think the goal with the survey really is to get it online and get it up and running. That way it certainly reach a lot more people. And I think that way it's just something it's more objective. I think that's one of the concerns that I think we have, which with HCD is trying to keep the process as objective as possible. And of course, to cast a wide net. So the kit in the box idea, I think why we've run with the survey as well is that the thing with the kit in the box is we would essentially have to make the box. There is no kit yet, which would involve a good deal of work and additional time. So the expectation was that the survey could fill that request and that we could get that going right away. And again, a lot of our community focus has been on AFFH issues and reaching out to special need groups, that the survey kind of fills the void of hitting the average resident or people.
Yeah, that's okay. We don't have much time. So survey, I guess we can also send that to the employee unions to encourage their members to fill out. So I do have one thing that I want to ensure I get consensus of the committee members, which is what I mentioned earlier, that we should include performance of the current housing element in all the presentations at the community meetings and on the website. So to present to the community that we have 5 housing element site projects are all approved. Out of the 1,000 unit allocation, we approved the 3,500 units because the media tries to paint a different picture, and our residents and whoever involved and employees deserve the facts. So can I make sure that I have consensus from the community members so that this could be implemented? Thank you. So
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I agree with
make this a
you.
motion, or we just verbally agree?
I think we can verbally do a straw poll. Do I have agreement also from Planning Commission Chair Scharf and Housing Commission Chair Parrish to include that information?
Yeah, I mean, that's been something we've talked about for years in order to try to combat some of the false narrative that's been coming from the media, is that we need to say, hey, we've approved everything. You know, we're just waiting for the property owners to decide to build.
Okay.
So I would favor it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Housing Commission Chair Parrish, are you also in agreement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. I have a request that with that survey that there is a QR code put on it, because if we have a hard copy of it, I know a lot of people are going to want to just zoom in on that and get linked over to the electronic form, and it helps you. Other question about the survey is, do you have a section on there where they can just free form comments? Okay.
I can help answer both of those questions. The whole intent is, even if we do put flyers out, we do want to put the QR code out mainly. It's not actually the survey itself. And then, yes, there are free comments at the very end.
Okay, beautiful. All right. And right now I'm not seeing any. Oh, there are some hands raised. Kylie?
Yes, sorry, thank you. Just one quick thing. So first, I compiled a list of the previous panelists and I sent it to you, Vice Mayor, and I'll send it to Luke to forward to the rest of the committee as well after this meeting. And second, Vice Mayor, I was wondering if you can quickly give me a little more information on that home sharing program that you were talking about, because I think that's a really, really perfect way to find the types of panelists and attendees that we're looking for.
So Project Sentinel partnered with a third party who provides this program. They are finalizing it, they say end of July. They would roll out soon, so you can contact them for more details.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to provide more of that. But if I can comment, I hope to make another comment on the survey later.
I think you might need to make it now. Because we're going to be moving on to a quick look at the website changes.
If possible, I think people like to be able to comment for some of the questions rather than wait until the end, because a lot of times they don't like any of the options and then they want to be able to comment. So if you can provide more freehand comment opportunities throughout, that will be better rather than waiting until they answered 32 questions.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. There was one city that had done something similar to that, and their responses, the compilation of their responses was about 75 pages long. So they would need to make it. We'll leave it to staff to decide which ones to allow further comments on. And maybe they want to have many pages of comments, but the city that had that many, someone also took the time to go through the comments and collect them into, categorize them into different groups to help with that. So it does add a little bit of work. So it's not just receiving the comment, but you need to kind of make sense of it and see if you're seeing similar trends. So I think we just leave it.
I mean, comment for specific questions, so it's related to a question.
Right.
So it's actually easier that this is related to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a hand raised from Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Yeah, so I was gonna leave this for just emailing it to Andy, but it being that it's a little more general, I thought I'd bring it up quickly. If there's a reason why in the survey, it only asks if you're Hispanic, and any reason why I didn't include other races. There are other minorities that we'd like to, other. The survey just asks if you're Hispanic, and I'm like, what?
We'll look more closely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I think some of the other cities had some more questions on that. Okay, so we were going to move on to looking at the website changes that have happened and the updates. Andy?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Moore. And I did want to, as requested, look briefly at our timeline check-in. I mentioned earlier that we'll be going forward with the Housing Commission to discuss policy. So you can see we're here and we're going forward with both City Council and the public to discuss sites. At the same time, we've got sort of a three-pronged approach here because we're trying to get to this HCD submittal as soon as possible. So while we have background drafts of appendices and chapters coming together, sections of the chapter rather, then we'll be working soon with the Housing Commission to talk about policy, and we'll be working soon also with our constraints analysis and talking with Planning Commission about approaches to zoning. So that's our check-in on that. And then our website update, I'll bring us directly to the site so you can see how to access it, but I just wanted to, before jumping around too much as part of the presentation here, show you what it looks like. So we have an ability for people to go directly into each area, and within that we can, I'm just going to stop share and then share again that screen. There we go. So when you go to the Engage Cupertino website, it's best to start from this site because then you can get to the hub page, and the hub page shows these tiles for each of the different parts of the website because it's multiple pages. So you can get more information generally about the housing element update here. You can learn about events and updates and see recordings of past meetings. We have both the Balancing Act and the surveys, and these have both been updated to reflect the recommendations from the Planning Commission. So we're pretty excited to have been able to flip that around. And you can see here that our goal date right now is to receive as much information as possible before August 4th. We'll need some time to collect that information and make it digestible for the council members, but we would love to have a whole lot of data to support what the public is thinking about all of these sites. And I heard Vice Mayor Chow mention about talking, making sure that everybody understands what has already been accepted and approved by the city. And that's what these pipeline projects represent. So we've got a total of over 3,000 units. There's still an ability for people to add comments if they want to, but the place where we really want to see the comments is within the neighborhoods for each of these sites. And when you click on the map, it can take you directly to the site. You can then double check with yourself to make sure that it is the site that you think that it is by clicking on the map. There's also, so this is helpful for those who enjoy looking at things spatially. Not everybody likes to look at maps when they're thinking about places. So we also have this ability within the website so that you can give feedback specific to a location. And here we've got it summarized on this first page. And then within each of these neighborhoods, you can hop in and say you want to make your comments about some sites within Jollyman neighborhood. When you give feedback, we first ask for generally, what is your feeling about future housing at this location? And this gets to that point that Chair Moore mentioned earlier. When we receive narrative feedback, sometimes it can be hard to understand at its base, is this person happy or not about this site? Because we all have our own ways of communicating. So this gives us a quick read on where they're coming from, and then they can, all members of the public, council members, all decision makers can come in here and share your comments as residents, and we will be tallying them. But you can see here with each and every site, we give some basic information to help you form your opinion. We also have what's called tier 1 and tier 2. So there's a number of sites that we sort of have in our back pocket. So all of the tier 1 is tallied within that mapping exercise that we have. And there are many different ways to get back to that map. Let's see, you can go at it just from this site as well. And when you look at it up on top here, you can see that we actually, what we've done is we've preloaded this with sites that the Planning Commission has carefully contemplated and considered and has included in their plan. So depending on how the public would like to anticipate the buffer, which helps us with no net loss. And that means that when a site gets developed, we can't control it exactly for how many affordable units will be included or how many units in total. So this buffer allows for staff to find other particularly low income housing if a site gets developed with less than we anticipate. This plan is about us making our best guess, but in the end, it is development, and we can't know for certain exactly, and we can't mandate exactly what will be developed at every single site. So by having this amount of buffer, that enables the staff to find that there is still capacity for that affordable housing within the city. And what that helps the city with is it helps you with your budget going forward, because there would otherwise be a mid-cycle review that is almost akin to having a whole nother housing element cycle. Housing element update cycle. And we want to help you avoid that. We want to set you up for success. That's our goal. So I can stop there and see if there's any questions about the website or the mapping or the surveys.
Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you, Andy. I love the technical aspects that have been added on there. I think that's terrific. So we're going to go to members of the public. I see quite a few hands raised at the moment. First, we have Jenny. Welcome, Jenny.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess. Oh, well, I thought I had comment. You know, I think that this is a good plan. Where the more I hate to sound like I just have a dim opinion of this whole thing, but I'm trying to be positive. But yeah, going forward, I think that having more input from everyone is very, very important. When you're rezoning chunks of the city, you especially near neighborhoods, you're going to be getting into high emotional levels. I have seen this in my dealings, and this is actually happening in some of the housing elements right now, especially Southern California, since they're ahead of us. But if we're trying to put our best foot forward, we need to make sure that we're hearing from everyone, the developers, the people living in the neighborhoods that are going to wind up with 6 stories towering over them, cities that are attempting to rezone properties, et cetera, without the public knowing what's going on. We've got it, the 400 cities across California, you have vestiges of this everywhere. So if we're going to have I'm going to say a peaceful rollout. I don't think this is going to be peaceful, but to try to make sure we do the best possible job, we're going to have input from everyone. And I'm going to just throw this in there now. I am already beginning to feel, especially with the house rich and the house poor thing, that the people who live in Cupertino are being marginalized. And I would like to live in Hillsborough, and maybe I should be active in Hillsborough's Zoom thing for their housing element and give input on why I would like to live in Hillsborough. But this is the battle lines, and there are battle lines that are being drawn right now. This is not just for California, it is for Oregon. My relatives in Oregon are living this now, Washington State and Virginia. And I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer in this, but I will reiterate again, we cannot marginalize the people that live in the cities. Where is our parkland? I have heard no mention of that. If we've got new residents who would like to move here, what is the plan to purchase parkland for all of us to enjoy? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Next, we move on to Lisa Warren, and we are moving up on the 1 o'clock hour. We are at 1 o'clock. So if we could, members of the public, if we can keep the comments brief, that would be appreciated. And welcome, Lisa.
All right, thank you. So I know I just logged in to the website and it said it was last updated this morning at 9:28. So for people who have already gone and done this survey, etc., I don't remember. I've looked at it and I had some questions already, but I don't remember seeing the little smiley faces reaction. So if that's new, I just trying to decide or figure out whether the input you already have is received and going to move forward with response recording, or, and I assume it will, but as it changes, as it's open for people to respond, it's a bit confusing. And I appreciate any improvement, so I understand why it's done, but I just want to make sure that all data is going to be there. I'd also like to know how many responses you have to date, because I would be interested in how many you have now and how many you have as of August 4th. And what I found when I was looking at it is, I know there's a lot of information in there, but you open up the page, and I think it was demonstrated by when Andy opened it, and it starts right off with the areas on the right and blah, blah, blah. You have to scroll down quite a bit to get the instructions on what you're supposed to be doing. So unless you're already familiar with the process, I think it's best if the instructions were moved to the top, and maybe I'm the only one that feels that way, but it's just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Susan Moore. Welcome, Susan.
Yeah, just a short one. Well, it does look like it's much improved. Having been frustrated in the past trying to do the survey, from what the demonstration was, it looks like it's much improved. As I said, same thing with Lisa said, like you've had information already. How is it going to be? And I'm going to try to do it again. I've done it several times. Is that, I don't know how you add on the information, but I'm looking forward to doing it again and having it be easier. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And we have one more speaker, Scott Connolly. Welcome, Scott.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. It's been a productive meeting. Just a couple of quick questions. In Andy's presentation going through the website, it looked like there was a reference to an August 4th City Council meeting. And I know the meeting on the 2nd, I believe, has been canceled, but I wasn't sure if that was just a placeholder date or if there is actually a meeting on the housing element scheduled to council on 8/4. The second thing really quick is I made this comment at the July 5th hearing when Andy was scrolling through the one example of a property that he went through. I didn't see any reference to height. I think height is a critical component of any of these sites with respect to any neighboring, adjacent neighbor views on what might be built there. I think that should be included. I would ask if we have questions when we're going through the website in terms of functionality, where should those questions be directed to city staff or directly to Andy? And the last point I'll make is that the attendance for the last two planning commission meetings from the community and this meeting today, obviously this meeting's in the middle of the day. So that's a little harder, but I mean, the last two planning commission meetings averaged about 22 residents attending. And I'm wondering if there's any concern that the word has not adequately been getting out to where people are wanting to be involved and express their opinion. I know that I believe part of the task of this task force was to understand how to get words out, put signs up, etc. And was just curious if that has been done and this is just something the residents aren't that concerned about, or to get your thoughts on that. I know we're running late, so to the extent you can comment, great. If not, look forward to talking to you folks at the next meeting. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Scott. And do we have some responses from staff regarding the public comment?
Well, on the latter comment, I'll just jump in terms of meeting attendance. It's interesting. We have really done as much as we can, in my view, on getting the word out. And we've certainly had better attendance at the community meetings than at the planning commission and even the joint meeting, where the attendance did go up on June 28 and July 5. What I suspect and have heard from other cities is that the attendance tends to go up after you have your housing sites identified. And very early on in the early planning commission meetings, we were looking at over 300 sites. So it was this, I think, very amorphous discussion that didn't mean much to people because we weren't talking about specific properties in detail. And we were at the last two meetings, and I anticipate on the city council meeting coming up, which is on August 16, that we will see an increase as well, because we have a recommendation on properties now and more detail about them in densities, building heights, things that Mr. Connolly alluded to. So all of those things will be part of the discussion, and I assume that that should increase participation as we go forward.
Okay, thank you, Luke. And Andy, your hand's raised.
Thank you. I can go quickly. I just want to make sure everybody knows that we will be folding in all public comments from the very beginning of our outreach related to sites. So that's been the advantage of being able to go neighborhood by neighborhood. So we'll make sure that council is aware of all comments from the beginning and all the way through. And we'll also remark on at which stage certain comments were received.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So I'm hoping that staff, because there's various public outreach channels, social media outlets, that because there is this August 4th request for the information for the public to provide their feedback, that there's a kind of a blast out through social media that this site selection, exactly, that site selection's been updated, what's changed, why they should participate, to turn something in, and some information about that August 16th meeting that's coming up, so that people know that we're honing in on sites, and that this is really becoming a critical time for them to provide their feedback. Okay, so I have some hands raised from the committee. So we've closed public comment. Bring it back to the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor.
Hi, regarding the question for ethnicity and race, I see question 2 and 3 follow the US Census format. Maybe the questionnaire could make clear of that. But the census format has no category for multiracial, which is unfortunate. I don't know whether we want to fix this or not. Question 21, I think, has a typo that you might want to fix. And it mentions our current Cupertino City is required over 4,000 additional housing units. maybe it's like, I think it's 4,600, right? Maybe
Okay.
you want to be a little more accurate, but there is a typo there. Yeah.
Okay.
And also I see a lot of other, like other regarding the impact fee question, other why Cupertino is expensive. I think these are places where we should have allow other comment. So if the other means they can comment, that would be great. If not, please allow other to provide comment. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor, did you have some comments on the website update?
Yeah, the website is great looking. Yeah, I think thank you for doing that. And I think public comments ask about if there is a way to survey about height, that might be good. And the deadline is confusing. I guess August 4th is a deadline to provide comment. Maybe that should be front and center as soon as you're going engage Cupertino housing element. Deadline should be deadline so that people don't have to click into the balancing tool to find out the deadline is the 4th. It should be right on the homepage. And also deadline for the survey should be on the homepage. Thank you. And the upcoming meeting, well, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next hand up, Planning Commission Chair Scharf.
Oh, thank you. Maybe that question on race can be check all that apply instead of checking only one to account for multiple races. That's a good point. Probably Vice Mayor. And then Andy, I just wanted to point it out. Besides the pipeline sites, there's other sites besides the ones that were identified in our housing element for 5th cycle where housing was constructed. And this is the same in every city. The city's not limited to approving housing only on those sites in their housing element, but that other housing does count towards your totals. And I also wanted to point out to everyone that, we did slightly exceed the number of sites that we need to meet our arena, but also remember density bonus units are not included in those totals. And we'd expect that all the large projects would take advantage of density bonus, which would include extra height, but would not include any extra affordable units. You do not make any of the density bonus units affordable. That's your benefit of including the affordable units, is you get that density bonus of market rate units. So we probably will have far more units actually built than is in the site selection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Planning Commission Chair Scharf. And next we have Housing Commission Chair Parrish.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment to go back to Scott Connolly's comment. I had the same concern. How are we promoting the meeting, and do we need to change the time of the meeting so that people that work during the day can attend? Just if it's possible to promote it more on the website. This is supposed to be, like he said, of the venue through which the community can communicate and kind of oversee the process. So it's not just a regular meeting. So just wanted to put that plug. And then on the survey, the pipeline, it might be helpful to put in parentheses previously approved. Just because I know a lot of people, I know what a pipeline is because I'm used to the terminology, but I think some people might not know what that means, that it was previously approved. So I just recommend that we put that, spell it out in parentheses, previously approved. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Housing Commission Chair Parrish. And do we have any further comments from Andy or Luke or Kylie? No? Okay, and is the presentation completed, Andy?
Well, if I may, there was one piece that I just wanted to give a heads up about so that it's not a surprise as we move forward. And this isn't a request that this committee weigh in on it. It's more a request if you have a problem with this. It's more of an informational. We want to let you know that our intention. And so the red line that you see here is the city's approval for that working draft, that will have been reviewed by the public for at least 30 days. Now, in the past, for this, it didn't used to be a 90-day review by HCD. It was much shorter and it was much more informal. It was that a consultant would have a relationship with the HCD reviewer and would share the draft prior to any approval by a decision-making body at a city. Rather, it would just be a staff version. And so the need for council approval is not there. There is not a requirement that where you see this red dash line, that it be approved by council. In my experience in working with the clients that we're working with, we have recognized that there's a lot of time saving to work with a reviewing body like yours, like this committee, like this strategic advisory committee, to have this type of reviewing body to be the one to give the nod for that draft to then be reviewed by HCD. I'm going to leave it to Luke. I want to make sure I'm not overstepping in making this suggestion at this meeting.
Well, I think I understand. Yeah, where you're saying is this is to try to expedite the process by getting a draft to HCD. The main issue I see though is that when the council created this committee on March 8, it pretty clearly limited the focus to community engagement. So if we were to propose something like this, obviously the council would have to weigh in on the ability to do that, since this committee is focused on really the specific topic we've been meeting about related to community engagement. So I just want to clarify that would be something that would have to be resolved in order to be able to have this body weigh in on the draft housing element.
If I may, I do want to suggest that staff and EMC first discuss this internally before we bring this back either to the committee or to the council or wherever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pew. So I actually don't really want to have further discussion on this until you've had that internal discussion. I think that would be more appropriate. And Chris, do you have a suggestion on this?
Yeah, no, I think Pew's suggestion is a good one.
Okay, so we'll just take it as information that you'll be discussing this internally and potentially bringing it back either to the committee or to council. Okay, so that ends the presentation and the report. So that was the report. Receiving the report and providing input to staff on the plans for additional community engagement. And did you have a timeline, Andy, for when that next meeting would potentially be? I'm not sure that was mentioned.
Yes, that would be September 20th is our draft date right now. It appears that all of our team is available that date. So that's the date that we're working towards, barring some unforeseen difficulty. That would be the date we anticipate. It's a Tuesday and it would be in the evening.
Okay, thank you. And it's not going to overlap what was the date? The 14th? Is that going to overlap a city council meeting or a planning commission meeting? I don't know if anyone has their calendar up.
And I believe, Andy, if you said September 20 was the date you mentioned, Andy? Okay.
If I may, that is a council meeting date, just so that I think we may need to talk more about the dates.
Okay, so have that discussion internally, and tentatively it would be on that date. And I do see that there's a hand raised from the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor?
Sorry, we are talking about date for the third community meeting.
They're still working it out internally. So for now, we're not, it's just hypothetical
I
dates.
do wonder, is that going to be only virtual also?
That is
Yes.
correct.
That is correct. At this point, Vice Mayor, we have had 2 meetings. I think we've had more participation with the second meeting, which was virtual only, than with the hybrid meeting. And that is certainly staff's recommendation at this point.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have completed item 3. We are going to move on to staff and committee reports. Do we have any staff and committee reports this time?
I don't believe we have any staff reports at this time.
Okay, and then a future agenda setting. So if you're planning a meeting in September, you will have already completed the survey by the end of August. So do you have some recommendations for when our next meeting would be? I would think perhaps sometime between August and the September planned meeting that we could hear some feedback about the survey, and then site selection will have been completed. Perhaps that would be a good time, or do I have some other suggestions from members of the committee? So I'm thinking a Monday in September. Monday 11 in early September, unless there's another suggestion. So probably not September 5th.
The Monday after Labor Day would seem to make sense to me.
Okay, it looks like the Legislative Review Committee is going to be on Monday, the 12th at 11. What is Monday, the 19th too late?
It
Or
may be too late, depending on what date we end up selecting for the workshop.
okay, what about
Wednesday the 7th? Can we not do a Wednesday?
Friday is better for me.
League of California Cities Conference is on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, so we'll be absent. So what about the Wednesday the 14th? Does that work for anyone?
Andy, does that work for you?
Yes.
Friday is better. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm at work.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, what about Friday the 16th at 11 a.m.? Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, works for me. How are we doing?
That's fine.
Okay. And Housing Commission Chair Tessa Parrish?
I do have a 10 o'clock, 10 to noon appointment. I can try to reschedule. I can email you back and let you know if I can reschedule that. Otherwise, no. It's 10 to noon.
Okay.
Or
well,
o'clock is okay.
What time?
And any time on Friday is okay.
Okay, so like it was 1 p.m. on the 16th. Would that still work for everyone?
Yes, well, that works for me.
That's okay.
Okay, Andy?
Yes, works for me.
Okay, and also Luke?
Yes.
Okay, so next meeting, Friday the 16th at 1 p.m. And we'll want to hear some updates on, everything that's being worked on. And we had the request for the meeting minutes update and listing. So are there any other comments from members of the committee regarding our future agenda setting? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we are now adjourned. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day. It's a very productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.